such a long walk to freedom from that side to here. And this podium is very sustainable, so I have to try and tuck my tummy in. A great morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thabile Nyaba has already been introduced. So in the time that we've got in here, that we have been allocated, I just want us to talk about how we can use the sustainable finance to drive climate adaptation. And when I talk about adaptation, we're really talking about the preparedness and just making some adjustments to make sure that our cities, our infrastructure is all ready for what the climate change is bringing up onto us. And we are actually resilient as well, if I can put it that way. One of the observations that I've seen is that the adaptation actions are actually not able to keep up, with the pace of the advancing climate risk, which is why then it's actually a very critical topic to have, especially during this very amazing conference where we're talking about the future of sustainability. So based on just what our last panelists have just said, I thought it was also very relevant to talk about this when somebody says, I'm just here to make money, I'm not interested in sustainability. So I've got this, as we're discussing with some of my colleagues, we actually thought about this quote to say that if there is no world to live in, then there won't be any place to spend your money on. I think if we can just maybe have that thinking all the time when we talk about the sustainable financing and we're talking about the investors, we always need to realize that we can have all the money on earth, but I mean, if there is no world and there's no planet to spend that money on, that money is just as good as not existing as well. So it is really my conviction that for those that have got deep pockets, they really need to try and make sure that this climate emergency, we're really tapping into this because we are where we are right now because we have not done what we are supposed to be doing. And the time is running out, and there is definitely this call for action to act now with deliberately and with speed as well. So, talking about climate change, I think the first thing that maybe we ought to do, maybe let us just have this perspective around what is happening in the space of the climate change. According to IPCC, it's quite disheartening to see what is currently growing, what is currently happening. If we then look at the western part of South Africa, you'll see that we will be so much prone to wildfires. And they're actually perpetuated by the drought and the extreme weather conditions. Just between December 2023 and January 2024, there have been 6,000 fires that have actually destroyed almost 100,000 hectares in the Western Cape. And that is what we are fighting against. If we look on the eastern side of South Africa, we actually, the western side is going to be, the eastern part of South Africa will be prone to more flooding. I did not talk about the flooding that has been happening in KZN, which is my province. About 1,400 homes were actually lost based on the flooding. So whichever way, if you look at this, and this hits very hard for some of us who are in the insurance industry, because if you look at it on both ways, we can't escape it. On one side, there are floods. On the other side, there are actually fires. So another observation is that the severity and the frequency of all these climate-related incidences are actually increasing. What used to be maybe once in 100 years is no longer 1 in 100 years or 10 years. It is now 1 in 5 or 2 or 3. And if I just share some of the predictions as well from the World Health Organization, they actually mentioned something a little bit disturbing, at least for me, when they were actually saying that climate change is responsible for about 150,000 deaths every year. And it also contributes to about 5 million human illnesses. So the issue of global warming, or what now is being called global weirding, is a reality that we all need to tap into and do something about. And obviously the global weirding, you guys can see. I mean, our weather is very schizo. You know, at these days, you just don't know what to wear, you know. It's really, really schizo. It's teka-teka-ring. I don't know how you guys are experiencing it, yeah. So, I mean, it is like the dry areas are getting more drier, the hot areas are getting more hotter, the cold are getting more colder. Actually, the whole environment is becoming so, you know, inhospitable, you know, to humankind and everybody that is living in, which is why then we definitely need to be looking closer into this. And hence then platforms like this really help to strike that conversation and actually plant that seed to each and every one of us to take this whole sustainability into our own hands. The other sad part that I actually picked up when I was looking at this, it's what is called climate refugees. Can you just imagine how painful it is for you to be displaced and you to have to leave your home just because of the weather conditions? You have to immigrate maybe because of the weather conditions. And the speculations are that by 2050, and I think because I'm a Gen Z right now, I'm very young, I'm sure I'm still gonna be a Gen Z by that, but in 2050, there will be about 1.2 billion climate refugees, and we need to act to try and deal with this. So what we're seeing here is that climate change really, it's not just an issue of the today and now, but it's got the long-term view as well because it destabilizes the communities and the societies, which is why then we need to look at this holistically and agently. And another thing is that it doesn't just occur in silo. It's got this tendency of having, if I have to wear my risk management hat, what we call the interconnected risks, meaning if one risk happens and then it's got a ripple effect to another. So when we address these issues of climate change, looking at this sustainable finance, we have to try and look at this thing holistically. Now, talking about sustainable finance and how we should then respond. I just want us to really think differently because if we have to do things differently or expecting different results, we have to think a little bit and act differently. So I want us to think about this sustainable investment, not only with the intention of getting the financial return on investment. I'm actually challenging, and I've been having these conversations with my colleagues and those in the space as well, to say that it's not really nowadays about the financial return on investment. There's got to be social return on investment, environmental return on investment, and we need to be looking at some of these initiatives that we are driving. We need to think, how can they actually deal with the unemployment? I mean, we know, for instance, with the youth. Remember, I said I'm a Gen Z, so I'm a youth in heart. And, you know, guys, it's said that, you know what, you can never choose your biological age, but you can choose the age of your attitude. So I choose to be a youngster. Are you bearing with me on this one? You get me? So that's what's up, yeah. So where I was going with this is that if you look at the youth unemployment, it's about 41% of youth that is unemployed. And the stats were actually being broken down that actually the organizations and the corporates that are driving a lot around the intense people or the youth that has got the qualifications. But about the bigger chunk of about 70% of this unemployed youth are the youth that don't even have matric. So it's good that we do we take the grades and everybody else, but what about that gap that is not there? And for some reason, I just believe that if we drive some of these initiatives, we'll be able to even tap into that youth that do not have even the metric. Not that we're encouraging them not to, but those are just some of the realities that we are dealing with. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to sustainable finance, let us look at how can it actually assist with curbing the unemployment. How can it assist with curbing the crime? How can it actually assist with the inequality? We know that there's a huge gap that is currently happening in our country with the haves and the have-nots. The inequality gap is getting bigger and bigger, and climate change actually, it's one of the culprits. It's one of the reasons why there's even this bigger gap. So we need to be looking at that, and I can't agree more with what some of the colleagues have already mentioned, that if you have to come and invest in Africa, let us use the people in Africa who've got a better appreciation and understanding of what is happening in Africa. we know our situation, and we're better positioned to try and implement and cap and deal with the issues that we are actually facing. So really, my big point around here is that in as much as we're talking about the sustainable finance, yes, it's got some requirements, but is it not a possibility for even, I'm making just a random example, if your ROI is supposed to be 25% as an example, can't you just allocate about 2% or 3% of that to go towards dealing with the climate adaptation? Because again, like I said, if there's no world to live in, then there is no place to spend your money on. So that is what I'm just driving with this particular one. Now, I am coming through from Old Mutual Insure. Okay, so guys, there's one thing that I just forgot to mention. You know, for climate adaptation, McKinsey actually estimated that the annual cost for developing countries could range between 160 billion to 340 billion by 2030. I'm very curious to know where are we right now. So we really need to pool all the resources to ultimately ensure that at least we're not only building the resilience from decarbonization, but we're also building the resilience from adaptation as well. So, I said I'm from Old Mutual Insure. And we are the industry, one of the industries that are hugely impacted, by climate change. You can just imagine, I've spoken about, we've got the increase in the severity and the severity and the frequency of the climate-related perils. So we're seeing the claims as well. The claims are going up, the loss ratios are going up. We have the responsibility, certainly, to cap the uninsurability. What I mean by that is that we still need to continue to underwrite some of the risks that our clients cannot underwrite. But on the other hand, we also have to make sure that we're protecting our balance sheet. So sometimes we find ourselves being caught in the middle as to what is it that we need to be doing. So the other observation really is that there's a huge insurance gap as well, because I'm sure some of you guys, and I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that are insured with Old Mutual Insure, right guys? Guys, you are, right? Yes, you are. Okay, so I know that, some of you are insured, but it has been happening in the industry per se. We have been de-risking as an insurance because obviously we need to be responsible to our shareholders as well. But we're starting to realize that that is not sustainable. We can't always pull out, of a risk, meaning if there are floods and then we say we're no longer underwriting that particular area because it's too risky. We need to change things around. So as Old Mutual Insure, some of the things that we've been driving really in the climate change, we've been very big on the modeling and analytics, whereby we develop things like a flood model to actually see which areas are actually susceptible to floods. I'm going to tell you right now what we're doing around that. But we've obviously have established a renewable energy product just to make sure that we're playing in that space. And guys, we are very big in collaboration. Trust me, we even collaborate with our competitors because we've realized that some of these issues and the problems that we are facing, we can never solve them through competition, but we can solve them through collaboration. So, thank you guys, yeah. So we definitely need to be collaborating. We've got the quick fire response services. We've collaborated with some of the insurers to deal with the fires in the Western Cape. We've just established a PBO, again with the other insurers as well, to actually help and capacitate the firefighters to ensure that the issues of fire actually are being reduced. So we're very, very big in collaboration, and I'm sure if there's anything that you can take away from what I'm talking about today, just remember that we have to collaborate. There is no other way except for collaboration. So I said I'm going to talk to you about what we are doing around the modeling and analytics. So there is vast information. Now we know that where the flood lines are, we know which areas are more susceptible. We're not just using that to do the calculation of how much premium we're supposed to be doing, or to price, or to do capital management, or to underwrite, but we're also using that information to share with the communities so that they understand the risk that they're facing if they build maybe on the areas that have got high rising seas as an example. But over and above that, we are doing what I'm saying. It's a call to action to each and every one of you, what we are doing, maybe an area of collaboration. We are looking at what is called the sponge or the resilient cities. Resilient or spawn cities, really, it's all about dealing with the Ninos. I always confuse them. You know, there's an El Nino, which is, I don't know whether it's a drought or the flood, but there are Ninos. There's an El Nino and the Al Nino. So we understand that we'll be faced by the droughts. Okay, and we've got the data that gives us that. So we're using the funding to go and try and play in the space of adaptation, meaning that we try and create the cities that are actually resilient. What that means is that when there are floods, so there's infrastructure that absorbs all the rainwater, so that we don't lose livelihoods, we don't lose the assets, and then that very same water that is being used, that is being preserved, then it's channeled for times of droughts. So you see, guys, it actually ticks both boxes. We deal with the flooding, but we also use this water, instead of it evaporating, we use this water then to also try and deal with the times of droughts. So that is one of the things that we're really big on. We're trying, it's still new. Again, it's a big project. It's a project that, as much people as we can, it would be great to have this, because it means we need to also talk to the policy developers as well to actually influence the policies. It talks to the partnerships, public partnerships, partnership with academias, partnerships with the communities, partnerships even globally, because I was fascinated to understand how much money is out there for things like climate adaptation. So the capital is there, the money is there, but what is not there is readiness. What is not there is it's a plan of where these monies can be channeled to. So developing things like this resilient or spawn cities, I really believe, and it's something that we are starting to work in, I really believe it's one of the things that can help with some of the impact of the climate change. The other one that is very close to my heart as well is amphibian houses. So amphibian houses, basically, it's a house that is built when it rains, it actually elevates, so that it doesn't get flooded. And then when the water subsides, that way, I'm Zulu, so there's a Zulu on my stove. So when the water then goes down, then it's able to, to go back to what it needs to be. So this is all the technology, and guys, we're living in the technological era. So let us use all the technology that is out there to try and really make and build the sustainable future. And then, like I said, some of the things, it's about us having to influence the policies. It's about us having to partner. We're very looking forward to having more partners coming on board as we actually develop or look at these spawn cities. And then, guys, in closing, I just want to leave you with this, with this food for thought, or rather food for action. For the organizations, it's easy to be held accountable because we need to report on some of these things. We just had the colleagues were talking about the legislation. So it's easy for us to having to report. But as individuals, we don't have to report to anybody. So we'll be spending 2 days here in this conference talking about sustainability and building sustainable and resilient future for ourselves and for the kids and for the generations that are coming after us. So my question to you is that what are you going to be doing at your individual capacity today, tomorrow, or when you get back to the office to make sure that you contribute to a sustainable cause and protect our world? It all starts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.